take 75.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fishin, the podcast where we discuss Merfolk and help all of the community become better Merfolk players. My name is Cody. I am one of the co-hosts on the show, and not Cody Smith on Twitter. And I am joined today by...
Hello, everybody. I have made my return. This is Dorian.
And we are here with episode 86 of Fishin' the Merfolk Podcast. We're starting the new year off strong at number 86. So this will be an interesting episode because we've got some preview cards that if you were on stream, you got to see us reveal the preview cards that we got from Wizards. So thank you very much to Wizards of the Coast for keeping us involved in those fun promotions, and it's definitely cool to get involved with the community in that way. And we're actually joined by a special guest this week. Make yourself known, special guest.
Hi, my name is Cody Hope. That is Cody with a C.
And we're bringing on Cody because he actually top 8'd a GP in our fair state of Oklahoma. So we wanted to discuss his Merfolk list and talk about the metagame and all that fun stuff. But we have a few things. We got a few pieces of housekeeping to take care of first. Number one is to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/fishcastmtg. That's the best way that you can help us with server costs, with Patreon rewards, with us being able to constantly stream Magic. That's all of your monies go to help this show, and all of our supporters have been very generous with their money, and that is we're very grateful. We would continue doing the show without Patreon. However, it would be a much worse show for the wear. And so thank you very much. You can also support us by going to inkedgaming.com/fishcastmtg. We'll just get 10% of what you'll get 10% off using that affiliate code, and we'll also get some money kicked back to us. So that is a great way to help us, as well as going to Cardamajigs and searching for our tokens, and you can buy our exclusive tokens at Cardamajig with art from Ishton.
All right, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, it was a lot to take care of, but we have all that fun stuff, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that social media garbage. So we are going to kick things off right in 2020 with a random Merfolk, and we actually had Cody Hope, Cody with a C, pick the random Merfolk. And Cody, do you want to read this random Merfolk for us?
I do. This is for 2 and a blue, Vindalcan Illusionist. It is a 2/2 Merfolk, and it has the ability for 2 blue, and you tap it to phase out target creature.
All right, interesting. A 3-mana 2/2. Those are definitely behind rate nowadays, I suppose. But I guess that back in the time of Chronicles, this was not that bad. Or this is Weatherlight.
Yes, this is definitely a limited bomb. I mean, 2/2 for 3 mana, and also we're like Hill Giant territory, I think. Oh no, I think that was a 4-mana 3/3.
Yes, 4-mana 3/3
is a Grey Ogre. This one was it was like, I think Grey Ogre is what they called this one. Because it's a Windrake if it has flying. But it has the best ability ever because it's a blue, summoning sickness. So you got to wait a whole turn to phase out any creature. It can even phase out itself.
Yes.
Was this still in the time where damage went on the stack?
Totally.
So very strong ability, being able to declare it as a blocker and then phasing it out once damage goes on the stack.
So I don't know where this card would really have a home. Obviously, it's not modern legal. So the only 3, besides like a Chaos Draft or like Cube Draft, the only place that this card is legal in is in Legacy, Vintage, and Commander. And unfortunately, I think if you're playing something that costs 3 mana in Legacy and Vintage, you need to be doing something that's a little bit more powerful than giving you the ability to phase something out next turn. I'm not saying it's not a bad ability, or I'm not saying it's not a good. You know what I mean? Like it's a good ability, but in Legacy, you're this is bad. Do you have any thoughts on this card, Cody?
I do not.
It's got a weird like leech looking fish on the art, so yeah, there's that. All right, but so let's go ahead and go into the main topic, which was your top 8 finish at GP Oklahoma City. I mean, I think Dorian kind of has the lead on all the questions, but I guess we can start off with like what led you to choosing this deck, and you know, why did you think it was, you know, good for the metagame?
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and start off so people in, you know, podcast land can understand what format were you playing in first, Cody?
Okay, this was a Pioneer PTQ that was at Grand Prix Oklahoma City.
Awesome. And then going back to the other Cody's main question, you know, what led you to picking Merfolk out of everything that you did have available to you for the Pioneer metagame?
Well, when they first announced Pioneer, I'd been playing Merfolk in Modern as well, and I really kind of wanted to adapt what I was doing over there into Pioneer. I didn't start out on Merfolk. I spent quite a bit of time trying to make Abzan work because I like Siege Rhino a whole lot. But I wasn't
my pearls.
But I was not doing too well with it, and I decided to give Merfolk a shot. And it took a long time for me to settle on a list that I really liked. But just after more and more play testing against the decks that were kind of dominating the meta, I really liked the way that it was shaping up there.
Yes, and you said you had a list for us, correct?
I do. So I have the list that I ran at that GP. I've made a couple changes since then because Oko got banned, so I had to kind of jostle around the list a little bit because of that.
Yes, I was playing in one of the PTQs. I think I played the Saturday one. You were in the Sunday one?
I was in the Saturday one.
Oh, awesome. Okay, then we were playing it around the same time, but I was doing way worse than you. Yeah. So I had planned to do like a Merfolk or like a Simic flash list because that just seemed to be like the one that you know, I've felt comfortable with doing, but I started, you know, fiddling around with just, you know, stupid brew ideas.
Okay.
And ended up settling on a list that was basically like a 4-color Vanifear Eldritch Evolution type of deck, and it was not good. I got just ran over by anything aggro. My creatures would get countered, and then, you know, by the time I could get started, it was most of the time just too late anyways. So I ended up going 0-4. Ooh. And then just dropping. I was like, all right, I'm done.
And I was doing mystery booster drafts, and that's what I did. So
hey, well, that is super fun, super awesome limited environment.
Yeah, and I ripped a Teferi's Protection, which is definitely a card I needed for my Bant Merfolk commander deck. So hey,
awesome.
You know, like sometimes things do work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh no, it was great too because I bought Oko that day, that Saturday, for it, and then yeah, as soon as that Monday showed up, it was like, So hopefully, you know, I'm gonna try to get what use I can from him out of Modern before, you know, he gets banned there too.
All right, so moving on, what were some of your favorite matchups that you played against? I know, I'm sure that you saw a lot of decks that were running a lot of, you know, things that you said, Siege Rhino. Siege Rhino is just a valuable creature, and I'm sure that you saw lots of lists running him. I'm sure that Oko also saw a lot of play, and I'm sure just various like mono red decks. I'm sure Goblins is a thing in the format. Me being somebody who honestly hasn't done a lot of delving into Pioneer as a format, what are some of your favorite matchups?
So one of the things I really like just about Pioneer in general is how diverse the format is right now. So I played 6 rounds in the standard tournament, and then I did 1 round in the top 8. And out of those 7 decks, I played against 7 different archetypes. I didn't play against the same thing twice all day, which I really, really enjoy just about the format in general. Some matchups from that weekend that really stood out to me. One, in round 3, I was going up against Green Black Rock, and I was kind of on the back foot for most of game 1. Like just real big Scavenging Ooze, real big Tireless Tracker. And right around the end of the game, right before he goes to attack, I play a Collected Company, and I'm able to Collected Company into 2 Tidebinder Mages, and was able to tap down his team and then be able to just kind of attack in for the next couple turns until I won that game. So that was a bit of a blowout. And then another matchup, because I wasn't prepared for this deck. In round 4, I was playing the Lotus Field combo deck.
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't really seen a whole lot on it, so that was very interesting. Game 1, I was able to get there because he essentially the last card in his hand that he goes to cast is a Dig Through Time, and I'm able to Wizards retort it, and then he's just not able to get back in the game from there. And then in game 2, I'm able to play Ashiok Dream Render on turn 3, and that really shut down his ability to Sylvan Scrying, doing things like that to be able to find his Lotus Fields. So those were like the 2 biggest matchups that kind of stood out to me in terms of like interesting things that had happened. There was one game, the round 6. So I was sitting 4-1 going into round 6, and I'm up against it's like the Rakdos mid-range deck where they're running all the Chandra Planeswalkers as well as like Heart of Kirin and things like that. And on game 2, I was not having great hands, and I like mulled to 5. And he thought seizes me, takes like my only creature, and I thought that that game was over. We were going to have to go over to game 3, but I was very, very fortunate that he had 3 Witch's Vengeance in hand, and I just kept drawing Mutavaults for the rest of the game.
That is definitely good. I haven't done a lot of, like I said, I've done admittedly little looking into Pioneer, but I am so excited that Mutavault is a part of Pioneer, because I think that is kind of a linchpin for Merfolk, and I don't know if, I mean, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I don't know how well Merfolk would be able to stand up if Mutavault were not in the format.
Mutavault it's very strong. It like that's all I really kind of have to say about it. It's a great when you're being aggressive. It's great to like be able to block things. The fact that it gets bumped up by the couple lords you do have in the deck is great. Like it is a super solid card, and I'm really glad to have it in the format.
Remind me, you had said you were testing for just a little bit before this. You were originally on a different deck, correct? That was the seed, like trying to make Siege Runner work.
Yeah, so right when Pioneer got announced, for pretty much all of October, I was trying to play, Abzan, Siege Rhino stuff, and going to like various events in my area. I wasn't doing too well going, 1-3, 2-2, 1-3, like just wasn't quite working out. I had decided to switch over to Pioneer right around Halloween. Nikachu had posted a video where he was doing Simic Merfolk, and he did pretty decent with it, so I decided to pick up the deck doing the list that he was running, and I was playing that twice a week for pretty much the whole month of November, and then a little bit of December before the event, and that's when I made most of my changes to that list.
Sweet. And then how does your list differ from his? Because thinking about it, I do see pretty much the main shell, but not having seen the list since, October, what was it that you had, changed up to, kind of match your play style?
I really think that Kumina, Tyrant of Araska, is one of the best cards in the deck. It is a great blocker against a lot of matchups, and there's a lot of value that's tied into it. I also was doing a full play set of Wizard's Retort main board. That was the biggest thing that I noticed from my testing is there are certain things that you like absolutely have to counter if you hope to win certain matchups, and just having that main board being able to answer some threats that you can't really answer on board too well was very, very helpful. I'm also doing 2 Brazen Borrowers. The ability to bounce any permanent is really strong, and then being able to get a 3/1 flyer is very powerful as well, especially when you have these like Heart of Kiran's running around, and you do have not a whole lot, but there are still a lot of like Witch's Vengeance type effects. So having just a little bit of deviation from that was very nice as well.
Sweet. And let's see, I think the last one, last question that I had for you at the very least was, your thought process on picking like the non-Merfolk. You talked a little bit about the Brazen Borrower in the main deck, but I'm seeing a couple others in your sideboard, mainly Phyrexian Revoker. Was that essentially to try to respond to when anyone was casting like a Planeswalker or something?
Yeah, so, and I've made some more changes to my sideboard since the list that did well there, but the deck, I think the reason why you should be playing Simic as opposed to just like mono blue Devotion or any other type of like mono blue build is for Collected Company. Collected Company is like just head and shoulders the strongest card in the deck, being able to at instant speed put in surprise blockers, especially when those blockers are things like Tidebinder Mage and Merfolk Trickster, being able to just tap down some key attackers. So having Phyrexian Revoker as opposed to something like Pithing Needle or Sorcerer's Spyglass is nice, because if you hit it off of a Collected Company, you're able to at instant speed stop whatever Planeswalker they're trying to play. So,
well, it's definitely cool that that you're able to kind of, I guess, like pickpocket very specific cards to kind of tackle what you expect in the meta.
And yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just kind of agreeing with Cody here, because I'm seeing that you have like the main like shell of Merfolk is just here in the main deck. With Oko being banned, though, how are you replacing that with?
I like to joke that I was the reason that Oko got banned. That Wizards saw my list and said, "Well, if this pile can top 8, surely."
That Oko is just too good.
Yeah.
So fortunately, the deck wasn't hurt too bad by the Oko ban, because it wasn't necessarily an Oko deck. It was just a deck that was running Oko. So the changes that I made, my main list originally was doing 3 Oko main board and then an additional one in the sideboard. So in terms of the main deck, what I decided to do was go up to a playset of Tidebinder Mage. I was only doing 3 before, so I decided to add that extra Tidebinder Mage in, especially with the dominance of green and red base decks in the format. I also went to 2 Thassa God of the Sea. One of the things that Oko was really good at was making it where you could attack into pretty much anything, because you can turn their Kalitas into an elk, you can turn their Thing in the Ice or their Crackling Drake into an elk. So having Thassa as a 5/5 indestructible that can make your stuff unblockable has been a very powerful addition. And another change that I wound up making was I took out the Harbinger of the Tides and added 2 Water Trap Weaver. What I found myself doing most of the time, I was casting Collected Company on the beginning of combat step for my opponent, or on their end step. Those were the 2 times that I was casting Collected Company the most. And it felt really bad to, at the beginning of combat, Collected Company into a Harbinger of the Tides. I think out of the whole time that I'd been playtesting with Harbinger, I only was able to use it once or twice where I was able to bounce something that mattered. So I've been doing 2 Water Trap Weavers instead, and that's been working out a whole lot better, especially against the red-based matchups where, especially like Arclight Phoenix, they get back several Arclight Phoenix from the graveyard, you're able to Collected Company and then reliably hit either a Merfolk Trickster, a Tidebinder Mage, or a Water Trap Weaver to tap that stuff down. And sorry.
Because what is it? That puts you at 10 possibilities of hitting at least one of them?
Yes, exactly. And then in the sideboard, I took out the one Oko, and I had one Tidebinder Mage there too that went main board. And I really decided to lean in to having the sideboard be all in on Collected Company. So I got rid of some of my non-creature spells and the creatures that I couldn't Collected Company into. So I decided to add 3 Mistcaller to the sideboard. Ashok Dreamrender did a very good job of helping me with the graveyard decks, but coming down on turn 3 was a little rough, especially if I had previously Collected Companied and had to put an Ashiok on the bottom. So Mistcaller was a really nice addition because I can play it on turn 1 if it's in my opening hand, or I can Collected Company into it later in the game. I also decided to add a couple Siren Storm Tamer in the place of Spell Pierce. Once again, it's something great that I can just play on turn 1. And this, as well as Mistcaller, are both wizards, so they both help me cast a Wizard's Retort early in the game. And then once again, just great hit for Collected Company. Currently, I'm doing 2 Aether Gust as well, because the matchups that I struggle with the most are kind of the more aggressive, all-in, like prowess-based red decks, as opposed to some of the more mid-range red list. So Aether Gust was there to help me with that. However, I think I might change the Aether Gusts over to Cerulean Drakes, because once again, just being able to Collected Company into these creatures is the strongest thing that the deck is doing.
Yeah, I was actually very interested to hear your reasonings behind taking out Harbinger of the Tides. You know, obviously you said that you've been playing the deck in Modern for some time, and Harbinger of the Tides has always been kind of one of those cards that I guess you could kind of go either way on. You know, you had to know what your meta was to determine if it was a good fit for what you were doing. And even with the addition of Merfolk Trickster, that kind of bumped up Harbinger a few story beats. But like you said, in your situation, when you're using Collected Company as a almost defensive tactic to disrupt your opponent, Harbinger of the Tides does less, on its own. And so I definitely agree that adding Water Trap Weavers does lock down an attacker at least, and it also gives you a few blockers, and you can hit Lords off of Collected Company, so hey, that's pretty neat too.
Which is excellent. It's just like, not to lean into Collected Company too much, but it really is like the whole reason to be playing green, to be playing the Simic build at all. Like it's what has stopped me from just going straight mono blue, is the fact that Collected Company just allows you to play on such a different axis, where if you fall behind, you're able to just jump right back into the game with Collected Company. It's also able to just push you way over the top. The times that I've gone like turn 1 Benthic Biomancer, turn 2 Silvergill Adept, turn 3 Kumina into a Collected Company, then being able to just tap 5 Merfolk, put a 1/1 counter on each of them, is like, it's something that can definitely outpace your opponent, especially if you're able to Collected Company into some form of disruption in the form of Trickster, Tidebinder Mage, Water Trap Weaver, etc.
I also saw that you had Phyrexian Revoker in the sideboard as well. That's another spicy target for Collected Company.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Something else. I had asked about that one, Cody.
But something else that I really like, speaking of Phyrexian Revoker, is the fact that Phyrexian Revoker shuts off any abilities, not just these non-mana abilities on cards like Pithing Needle. You can name a target, but it can still activate mana abilities. The fact in some of these mono-green ramp strategies that you can, if you have a Phyrexian Revoker in your opening hand, just on turn 2 playing it, naming Land War Elves, and then they can't tap that for mana anymore, is sometimes enough to just shut the whole game down.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to point out about Siren Storm Tamer is, this has been kind of true through Merfolk's history for some time, but we have a lot of incidental Merfolk wizards in the deck as well. So Merfolk Trickster, Tidebinder Mage, they're all Merfolk wizards. So we have extra bonuses. That Siren Storm Tamer is a good all around pick, I guess. Kind of like an onboard spell pierce.
Yeah. Exactly. Being able to run a full 4 copies of Wizard's Retort and consistently cast it for 2 blue is something that is very helpful in some of these matchups where the tempo of the game is very important. So against the like Gruul aggro decks that are running around, the more mid-range runs with like Lovestruck Beast, Questing Beast, that kind of thing, being able to still advance your game plan while holding up that 2 blue, because then you can Merfolk Trickster if they play something that isn't so scary and you're trying to push in for damage, or being able to Wizard's Retort something if it is one of the big scaries.
Yeah, so what were some of the matchups that you played against that you, I guess, maybe had the most trouble with? Again, you said that you saw, all new, basically every time you stepped up to the table, you saw a different deck, which I think is a sign of a healthy format, or at least a new format, if anything. But what were some of the decks that you had trouble with, at least at first, or maybe I guess what was the hardest matchup of the day?
The hardest matchup of the day. Let's see, because that whole day I had lost 2 matchups. One was in round 2. It was a black-white zombies deck. It was predominantly black, splashing white for some cards like Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, as well as some other removal options like Declaration in Stone. That matchup was very grindy because they had a lot of removal spells and a lot of creatures with life gain. Things like a Gifted Aetherborn. I can't remember the name right now, but it's the vehicle that you can pay an energy and it gets lifelink. Like
Aetherflux the Harvester.
Harvester, yeah.
Yeah.
That one. So like just a lot of removal, like coupled with that incidental life gain, was just like really hard for me to overcome, and I wound up losing that game. The Phoenix matchup was surprisingly tough. That was my one matchup in top 8. Like that list was running Flame Sweep, which I know isn't a common card choice for like the stock Phoenix lists now, but like just that matchup was really tough, and it's one that I still can't consistently beat even now post that GP, because I have been getting ready for this weekend actually. GP Austin. I'm going to be going down there doing all 3 PTQs that are there Friday, Saturday, Sunday for Pioneer. And those red matchups really are the ones that I'm worried about the most, as some cards on my list, you can probably tell by the fact that I'm doing the full play set of Tidebinder Mages, and that I've replaced kind of Harbinger for Water Trap Weaver. Like those all-in red decks are the ones that I'm the most concerned about. Like even the all-in ones can definitely get under me before I can make a board presence, and the more mid-rangey ones just have such huge threats. Things like Glorybringer, if they're able to attack and exert Glorybringer, it's really hard to come back from that. So having these extra options to counter that kind of stuff or mitigate the damage that it's doing is something that I've been really trying to kind of hone the deck in. I don't have too much trouble with the black matchups, but it really is those like red matchups that are giving me a bit of trouble.
With the difficulty with the red matchups and all, are you planning on putting anything else in there to kind of help out that to help out the matchup just a little bit? Because what I'm seeing here is that you do have the Siren Storm Tamer and Aether Gusts, but what else would you want to add, not counting the Tidebinder Mages in the main?
I have been thinking about changing out the Aether Gusts for Cerulean Drakes, because Aether Gust is best in the Phoenix matchup, where you're able to Aether Gust like a Arclight Phoenix back 2 on top of their library, or you're able to do it when they go to cast Crackling Drake, so they don't get to draw a card. So Aether Gust is really good in the Phoenix matchups. It's not super great in like these Gruul aggro decks, the ones that are playing like Glorybringer, Goblin Chain Whirler, that kind of thing, because them getting able to get more value off of their chain whirlers, being able to ping down your board again, or things like Glorybringer. Just those aren't things that I want them to be able to cast again. So changing out those Aether Gust for Cerulean Drakes is something that I'm very heavily considering, because a Cerulean Drake can sit there and block a Glorybringer all day.
For those of you at home, Cerulean Drake is 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Drake. Shocker. And it has flying and protection from red. Sacrifice Cerulean Drake, counter target spell that targets you. So it definitely, I see what you mean by just being able, I mean, Glorybringer, especially once exerted, can kill a Lord to bring down your whole team, and then just kind of keep hitting you in the air every other turn for 4, and just kind of keep bombing out your creatures. And, you know, it's definitely a rough matchup. And Cerulean Drake, you can hit off a Collected Company. So I think Cerulean Drake would be a very interesting addition to the deck. I mean, and it could also just block a Taylor Swiftspear. You know, no matter what no matter what happens, it can block it.
Which is, I think, the biggest appeal to that card to me is like the fact that it's just a big block, like a blocker that will not die to these red base decks. The only thing you would have to worry about is things like Stomp, which say that damage can't be prevented. But even then, it just being able to counter a spell that's targeting me, or even in like certain matchups where if my hand is sculpted outright, I can just play a Cerulean Drake and attack for 1 in the air every turn, and then just hold up counter spells and Merfolk Tricksters. So having some built-in evasion is something that I think is a plus to the card as well.
Nice. And you touched on it just a little bit earlier in the conversation, but with the use of Collected Company, what is the best time to use it?
For myself, like 8 times out of 10, I am casting Collected Company on the beginning of combat step for my opponent. So once they've said that they are going to the attack step, but before they've actually declared sources of tap abilities in the deck, where I'm able to take something where they thought would be a very favorable attack and make it where they're not really doing any damage to me at all. Depending on the matchup, though, sometimes I might even wait until they declare attackers. For example, being able to Collected Company into a Merfolk Trickster, being able to take away like a Brazen Borrower's Flying, and then being able to block it is really nice. Being able to take the lifelink off of a Gifted Aetherborn, or just shutting off all of Kalitas and then being able to make blocks to kill it. So sometimes I will do that as well, but typically I find myself using Collected Company as more of a reactive card than a proactive one. I'm not really trying to Collected Company on my turn to find Lords. I'm really trying to do it on my opponent's turn to put something in play that they weren't expecting.
And honestly, I think that kind of plays into what Merfolk does in basically every format, and it's saying, no, you go ahead. And then you know, with Aether Vial and you know, the flash creatures that we have, you know, with Merfolk Trickster, and to a greater, you know, a lesser extent, Harbinger of the Tides, playing as much as you can on your opponent's turn is almost always the better play, and this is allowing you to do that sort of.
Yeah, it like not having Aether Vial is a bit of a negative for just like the tribal archetypes in the format, but you know, being able to have a lot of creatures that you can do things with on your opponent's turn. So if I'm up against more of a combo centric deck, doing a turn 1 Benthic Biomancer and then holding up Wizard's Retort on my second turn, and if they don't do something big, if they just do an Opt or a Growth Spiral or something, then being able to like adapt Benthic Biomancer, just getting the most value that I can using all of my mana each turn, while still being able to play more of a reactive game, is something that A, I find very enjoyable, but B, I think is very strong depending on the matchup.
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast, print Aether Vial into Pioneer, you cowards. Do it. I think that would make. There's a lot of decks I think that could benefit from Aether Vial, and I think the price would still be fairly expensive just because of, you know, basically being used in like 5 formats. Jeez.
What was it, like Neo, like Death, or like Death and Taxes would love to have I think Aether Vial on Pioneer.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting for sure.
Which, speaking of, kind of, if like we can go in just very, very briefly into like my like wish list of things that I wish that they would print into Pioneer. I would, I think it might not be reasonable for me to expect something like Lord of Atlantis or Master of the Pearl Trident to be printed, but I was looking through cards, and I really think that like Merfolk Sovereign would be a very like safe card for them to print into Pioneer. Doesn't have any keywords on it like Island Walk, which is something we don't really see in Pioneer at all, but I think like a card like Merfolk Sovereign would be a good one to add in to the format.
Or we're going back to Zendikar. Maybe we could see a Coralhelm commander, maybe?
Ooh, I would like that.
Level up would be fine. We were missing that in the Battle for Zendikar stuff.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't watched the streams of my beloved Slowfolk, Coralhelm Commander is blue for a 2/2 Merfolk soldier with level up, and its level up cost is 1 generic mana. And so at its base stat, it's a 2/2 for blue. So okay, that's fine. But then at levels 2 and 3, it has flying. And it becomes a 3/3. So, on, let's say, turn 3, it could feasibly attack as a 3/3 flyer. But the real juice is where you get Coralhelm Commander at least to level 4, and he becomes a 4/4 with flying, and other Merfolk creatures you control get +1/+1. We're very aware that Wizards is tiptoeing around land walk abilities, and they don't seem to want to reprint anything with that, with any of those texts in any sort of standard playable set. I could see them doing it again in like a Modern Masters or something along those lines, but never again in standard, I'm sure. So Coralhelm Commander, on our three-peat to Zendikar, hey, maybe we could see it.
I would like that a whole lot. I was checking in like the list of Merfolk that are legal in Pioneer, and I believe there is currently only one Merfolk that has Island Walk, and that is a uncommon from M14, Merfolk Spy. One mana for a 1/1 that has Island Walk.
Hey, I mean, they're not doing it again. They gave us the Lord in 2013.
So what we need is we got to play a blue, white, green version of it so that we can splash for Audric. And then during our combat step, he just gives whatever keyword is in, your creature base is going to go to all your creatures. Everything gets it. So one creature with Island Walk, one creature with, flying, one creature with protection from, whatever.
Protection from red from Cerulean Drake. We'll just do Audric Merfolk keyword soup. It'll be fine.
Let's see. He specifically gives first strike, flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So okay, never mind.
No Island Walk.
No land walk abilities.
So
we do get skulk.
Yeah, skulk.
We can also do death touch.
Yeah, skulking death touch.
Death touch and trample. That's all we need.
So we're kind of running down on time, but I did want to bring this up as we're kind of coming up to the tail end. Looking forward to where Merfolk is going in the near future, we obviously have this new set, Theros Beyond Death, where us, you boys over at Fishin' and Merfolk Podcast, we got to reveal not one but 2 Merfolk cards, and one of them was actually a black Merfolk, which we haven't seen, since our beloved Lorwyn block. Do you think that there's maybe a future for like a blue-black Merfolk, or maybe a Sultai Merfolk with like Mire Triton as kind of an additional combat trick for playing Cocos and whatnot?
It's definitely possible. The only issue is that like the mana bases in Pioneer aren't super friendly to 3-color decks, And not having something like Cavern of Souls like we do in Modern is something that I think it would really stop me from wanting to push into 3 colors, especially just for 1 to 2 cards.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to do Merfolk without the Lord. And if the only Lord that we have is in Simic, yeah. That can be pretty bad.
Yeah, I was really wanting to try to get like mirror image in like in a Merfolk list, just to try to copy, like some Lord effects. But even then, it's you need to have a Lord in play to copy.
I think a Dimir Merfolk list would really work out super well in Modern, especially with like Mire Triton's ability to put 2 cards from your library into your graveyard. Being able to like play a 2/1 Death Touch on turn 2, and then maybe running something like Unearth to get a Lord out of your graveyard that you milled over with Mire Triton, I think would be something that'd be very fun.
That actually sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, it does seem really fun, and I did discuss it on a video on Nikachu's channel. The possibility of maybe like a Merfolk dredge list where you play like Emery of the Loch, and you just like dump equipment into your yard and flip it out with Emery. There's some interesting things that we can do there, but who knows? One last card that I want to ask about, because I think it's a card that a lot of people have been looking at for tribal decks in Pioneer, is Metallic Mimic. What is your opinion on Metallic Mimic?
Let me see. I need to check the exact wording on that card.
Metallic Mimic is 2 mana for a 2/1 artifact creature shapeshifter. As Metallic Mimic enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Metallic Mimic is the chosen type in addition to its other types, and each other creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it.
I'm not exactly sold on it. The only issue that it really is that it requires you to play it pretty much on turn 2 or turn 3 for it to get the value that you want off of it. It's not really great off of Collected Company. And sometimes in the late game, you're just kind of digging to find the extra Lord or the extra like Kumina to push through extra damage at the end of the game. And Metallic Mimic is like not a very good turn 6 or turn 7 draw.
That's fair. All right. So Dorian, do you want to do your state of the format corner there?
Yeah. Entirely wrong sound effect. No, this is more of a news style type of thing. But yeah, State of Modern is let's just say it's not. Oh wait.
I'll put in one of our SpongeBob alerts there. Don't worry.
Yeah, just looking at the Modern metagame, I decided to take a gander out of all the types of lists that were running Oko, and we have a minimum of 21 lists. Not counting non-repeatable lists, 21. And then going further down, they start repeating the shell, but they call it something else entirely. What is it? Oh, hey, Slivers. Let's see. Slivers is not running Oko, so they are like the humans deck, just wanting to jam as much human as creatures as they can. But let's see. We've got a 5-color list that is elementals. Actually, that's kind of cool. An elementals list, just like took down a league like the very last day of 2019.
Oh snap! Interesting.
Yep, that is pretty funny. But yeah, like 21, non-repeatable lists are running Oko. And we're talking, Wurza, Death Shadow, Titan Shift has completely, shifted over to Simic colors instead of red-green. Zorius control has become Bant control. Stoneblade has become Bant Stoneblade. Well, Infect and Coco lists are, running Oko in the sideboard, sometimes even in the main, just depending on the metagame that they were expecting. And the ones that seem to be staying true to form were, Tron, Eldrazi Tron, Burn. Can't even say that. There were talks going around where Burn was splashing blue-green just to play Oko. Dredge, and I'm starting to see, Storm splashing green. For now, it's because of Veil of Summer, but who knows? They might start saying, well, if we want to not, just die out on our deck, if we storm off and we have the mana, let's just drop an Oko and take out their biggest creature.
Seems good.
So yeah, Modern is not looking good. It looks like we are going to have like an Oko Spring, or what we'll call it. Because what was it? Those are Eldrazi Winter, Hogak Summer, Oko Spring, and all. What is it? Karnfall or something?
Karnfall.
But the warping effect that Oko's kind of had on the metagame has been it's been staggering. This coming weekend, as of this recording, is Grand Prix Austin, and the main event for that is Modern, and I'm currently on a team for my local game store, and all of us were going to go down there and compete in the main event there because we're all real big on Modern, but it's like, especially after doing Grand Prix Oklahoma City, where we all went and did Pioneer, it's like, I don't think any of us are doing the main event anymore. All of us have decided to just go in on a Pioneer PTQs because aside from myself, who is playing Simic Merfolk, which is running Oko, none of them are, and all of their decks have just been really pushed out of the format by it. So,
well, now you can't run Oko anymore, unfortunately. So you'll have to let us know how Kiora does.
For Modern.
For Modern.
Oh, for Modern. I'm sorry. Yes, you can continue doing that.
The last day while I was at Oklahoma City, I had I threw Simic Merfolk together since I already had the Okos with me, and all the other pieces in my little Merfolk toolbox. And yeah, I ended up, just throwing that list together, not even caring too much about not having played it in a while. Ended up, winning a box after one event.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Well, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's just what Oko was doing for me. It was either I can, flat violin a Merfolk, or, turn 3, play Oko, okay, get rid of your creature that's been stalling the board for a little bit, and now I can start swinging.
Awesome. Yeah, Oko just doing elk things and doing food things and doing elk things. I guess elks can be food. So yeah, it's doing all sorts of food things. I guess elk is like pre-food. It's while it's alive, it's not food. So we're gonna run into the opening hand, and we are gonna get out of here. So I threw your list with your changes, Cody, into tappedout.net because they let you draw a hand. And since it's an even episode 86, we are going to be on the play. So I'm going to read off the list, the hand, and you're going to let us know, or we're going to discuss if this is a keepable hand, if this is something that you're excited to see. And so I'll go ahead and read off the list here. So on the play, and this is our opening 7, there is a Breeding Pool, a Merfolk Trickster, an Island, a Merfolk Mistbinder, a Mutavault, a Tidebinder Mage, and a Collected Company.
Ooh. How many lands did we have in that hand?
So there are 3. There's 1 basic island, there's a Breeding Pool, and a Mutavault.
Well, that's... I would be definitely inclined to keep it. You can pretty much cast everything in your hand aside from the Collected Company, and you're only 1 top deck away from being able to do that. Like, you get 3 draw steps to find a Collected Company. Like, that's almost like the perfect opening hand. You are able to play that Breeding Pool tapped on turn 1. Turn 2, you're able to, depending on what matchup you are, either play your Mistbinder or flash in a Trickster on the end of their turn, Like that's just, you're really able to curve out nicely with that hand. So I know that I would be keeping that.
Yeah, again, since I have very little experience with the format, that being said, I do think, like you said, we have double blue, so our Tidebinder Mage and our Merfolk Trickster are both safe. We also have blue-green for the Merfolk Mistbinder. We also have a Mutavault that we can kind of, it's good to get a few of those down, just so that way you have the option to be able to activate them and swing. And like as you said, Collection Company, being the most expensive card in the deck, really, mana cost wise, you are able to just go, oh, my hand's empty, neat, Collected Company, and just kind of dump into a few creatures. So I think it's a keep for me as well. Dorian, what do you think of this opening hand?
This opening hand just sounds awesome.
I agree. All right, well, I think that pretty much covers it, because there was very little contest on that opening hand. It was just all good. Cody, where can we find you on the interwebs and or at events?
You can find me on most social media at the Cody Hope, TheCodyHope. I am most active on Facebook, and I am in the Merfolk Facebook group that we have there. So if you ever want to ask me things, that would probably be the best place too. I will also, if this episode gets up in time, I'm going to be at GP Austin this weekend. So that is date-wise. Oh goodness, this week has gone by super slow.
It's Monday, Lemon.
Monday. All right.
So that'll be Friday the 10th. So this episode will be coming out January 9th. So yes.
All right.
If you are at GP Austin, go say hi to Cody. We might send you. We'll have to send you down with some tokens or something like that to hand out, or to use for yourself. They're fun little tokens. But yeah, so thank you so much for spending your time and your night with us discussing Pioneer Merfolk, and even kind of, a little bit of searing into the future of the possibility of Black Merfolk, and it'll be an interesting time to see. And good luck to you on your GP quest there. Hopefully, we this isn't the last time we hear from you. We want to see you on the board a few more times.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It has been super fun, and yeah, hopefully with 3 PTQs coming up this weekend, I can hopefully do well at 1 to 3 of them, and we can check in and see how that goes.
I will for sure be keeping an eye out for your name on the top 8 lists.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as Not Cody Smith. That is NOTKODYSMITH. Dorian, where can we find you?
So I am at Crinkle Biscuit with a K. If you want to follow someone who's spending their entire, unemployed life arguing with troll bots on Twitter, then you can be wildly entertained as I am. Otherwise, definitely follow the Fishcast, where we have more of a reliance on magic content.
Yes, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as at FishcastMTG. That is where you can find us on all of our social media accounts. And make sure to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/FishcastMTG, as well as all the fun places that you can find our merch, like cards, Cardamajigs, where you can buy our tokens, and Inked Gaming, where you can buy playmats, you can buy t-shirts, you can I think that's it. I think those are the things we sell. But you can buy them,
yes,
and they're great.
Tokens, playmats, t-shirts.
Yeah, they're all good. We've all owned our own shirts and everything, so it's been a lot of fun to test those out, and they're great feeling shirts, I think. So remember to go to inkedgaming.com/fishcastmtg to get your 10% off and kick back a little bit of money to us to help us with server hosting and whatnot. So thank you again, Cody, and again we will be keeping an eye on you, or because fish, they only have an eye on one side of their body at a time, so you can't keep both eyes on you.
And thank you guys so much. I wanted to do just real quick, do a big shout out to Brickhouse Games in Garland, Texas. That is where you can find me playing Merfolk most of the time. Just super great game store, and that environment is definitely what has helped me make the list what it is today.
Yes, from Matt, as he would say, good night, everybody. My final thoughts, I just want to say it's great to be back, everybody. We are hoping to make this a weekly thing like it used to be. Those of you out there that were in the know-how with a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, thank you for sticking with us. We could not do this without you guys and your support.
Yes, 100% agree, and we are definitely kicking things back in high gear, so expect weekly content. You should be seeing daily videos up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fishcastmtg. So check those out, and we'll see you all next week.